Hello everybody, my name is Ilya.
My name is Tyler. Together we make up Kavre, a couple that loves to play board games.
Especially together.
Yes, two-player games are always a highlight of our board gaming.
Now today what we're going to do is share some two-player game recommendations with you. If you didn't know, we did a whole two-player month 2 years ago now.
2 years ago now? Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot of time. But in that month, we covered over 50 two-player only games. And we want to continue adding some two-player only love to the mix.
Yes, so a lot of the games that we're going to be talking about today are games that were not included in that two-player month. And we're excited to keep on building that list of two-player games.
So if you're interested in that, check out our two-player month because there's a lot of fun content in there.
But for now, let's talk about 10 new two-player games that we're excited to show you.
And who we think they may be for. Exciting stuff. Where do you want to start?
Let's start over there. The Sky Team. So this is a two-player cooperative game. So first of all, if you're interested in a cooperative game, definitely check Sky Team out. But essentially, you're working as pilot and co-pilot to try and land your plane. And the cool thing about this is it's got like a campaign-esque feel where you're trying to land in different airports, and they've got different like scenarios that are set up for you to try and succeed through.
Yeah, they increase the difficulty, make it a little bit tricky. The whole premise of the game is you're rolling dice, and then you're deciding what you're going to do before you start placing the dice, because you don't know the values of what rolled what.
Yes, it's a hidden cooperative game, so the dice values are hidden from your partner.
So you decide what you're going to do, you're going to roll the dice, and then you're going to silently take turns placing the dice onto the board. Trying to make sure that the wings are leveled, that you're having enough coffee breaks, that the flaps come out, that the wheels come out, that you're really ready for landing.
Yeah, you got to go slow enough to make sure the landing is safe.
Yeah, and make sure those other airplanes are cleared out of the sky because you don't want to have any crashes.
Yeah, air traffic is a thing.
It is, but it's a really thematic game. It's a lot of fun to play, and if you want to have a tense "can we do this" moment, I feel like this is the game for you.
Yeah. The first couple of scenarios seem relatively like smooth sailing, smooth flying, but yeah, it depends on how your rolls are, I suppose.
Some of them are, they're trickier, but like Tyler said, they grow in complexity too and add different conditions, different weather. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah. Anyways, that is Sky Team.
Will there be Ship Team, where you try to land a ship?
Port a ship.
Port a ship?
Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe. Now let's talk about cats.
Maybe boop. Maybe boop. Double boop. Double.
So we'll start off with the classic boop. Now, if you enjoy quick games that are to the table, that are a little bit thinky, try to think ahead of your opponent, boop may be the game for you. Because in this game, you're placing cats, and your whole goal is just to get 3 in a row.
3 big cats in a row.
Exactly. Yeah. But you'll start off with kittens, and they'll grow, and they'll push everything off to the side, because cats like to boop each other. Now, if you want a little bit more complexity, there's a boop. And there's some ghost cats that also do some booping on the way. So there's another layer of complexity. But what's really fun about this game is there's a little quilt that goes on top of the box. And the box is utilized essentially as the game board.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's just very cute. It's very simple. But it's a game that you'll keep coming back to because there's so many different ways to play it and so many different ways to outthink your opponent.
Yeah, the best way I could describe this is it's like an elevated tic-tac-toe type situation where you are just like playing you're playing the player in a lot of these situations, and you're really trying to game like what's going on as the game progresses.
And it does break your brain a little bit because you just boop in all directions, and sometimes you just don't see some of the things coming, which is really exciting.
And you can knock the cats or the kittens off of the bed.
Or the cats
as well. Or the quilt, I guess it would be.
They just go flying off because they go boop.
And that is Boop and Boop. So next up, we've got another game that is giving the tic-tac-toe type of vibe, and that is this wooden abstract called Koale. And essentially in this game, you're doing exactly that. You want to get 4 in a row, but the way you want to do that is very interesting because there's a neutral color on the board, and then one color player and another color player, and you place actually on top of an existing pile, and then like cascades unstack, I guess it would be, but you just leave one as you keep on moving until you can't anymore, and then that's your turn. So it's very puzzly, it's very thinky, but it's also like super simple and amazingly tactile.
It's another one of those games that you play and you're like, oh, this seems easy enough. And then you see the potential of blocking and how you cover stuff up and how stuff unrolls. And sometimes, again, you don't see those moves and those victories coming. So it's, again, a really fun game to just keep playing again and again.
Exactly. It's a lot of... it is also like really quick, so you can get a lot in, and then it's just super easy to set up. Like you can almost like leave it as almost a table piece because it is like that beautiful. A lot can be said for the wooden abstracts that fall into this category as well.
Good tactile feel.
Yeah.
That's
Anyways,
Koali.
that is Koali.
Now another one we can talk about is Yokai Sketch.
What a small box.
This is a little one from Devere Games, and all you're doing in this one is you're sketching and you're painting different colors. But the way it works is it's almost like an area control game with cards.
Yeah.
There's cards in the middle that you're contributing colors to, but the catch in this game is on your turn you always draw one, but you can play between 1 and 3. And sometimes you don't have to play. You only have to play if you reach a certain hand limit. So deciding when to play and when to claim the points is really tricky because the way the game works is you're trying to claim those by playing a certain amount of ink towards it. Now when you do that, your cards are gone. So it's like a really revolving area control game. And you're simply just trying to get as many points as you can by controlling those little, or by collecting the cards from the middle.
Yeah. And of course there's like little twists and turns along the way where things end up moving to one spot, a different spot, like you can interact with your opponent in certain types of ways as well. And that's always fun. If you like land, air, and sea, is that the right way? I always get the order mixed up. If you like that game, I think Yokai Sketch is like a really close friend to that.
Or Smash Up as well.
Or Smash Up, yeah. So I would say Yokai Sketch is definitely worth checking out.
It's also very pretty.
It is beautiful.
That's Yokai Sketch.
Speaking of clever card games that are like land, air, and sea, we've got another one here called Fika. And this one's a little... It is in line with the land, air, sea, and Yokai Sketch, but it's definitely like you play out cards that give you certain points, but also when you play them, you react to them. Sometimes that benefits your area, sometimes that messes up your opponent's area, and you're basically in competition to run the best coffee shop. So thematically, I think this one like can speak to a lot of different people, and of course, if you are into that head-to-head like card battler, Fika is worth checking out.
And you're just trying to have a coffee break. I think the cards in this one, I just want to eat and drink everything in this game.
Yeah.
Beth Sobel's artist, and she just did such an incredible job with this game, and I just want to keep playing it just for the aesthetic alone.
Yeah. This is one of those games where you can honestly like play it in the morning with your coffee and like bagel, and it just feels like really right.
Or a croissant.
Yeah, whatever it is, whatever you fancy for your breakfast, I think Fika is a good addition to maybe even just make sure you're spending some time in the morning with your loved one.
But don't eat Fika.
No, would not recommend. All right, that's Fika.
Now up next is Orion Duel.
Orion Duel.
So this is the big box collectors, I think, edition. There is a smaller box that exists.
I will say right now, if you want this game, I'd actually lean towards the not deluxe version. This game, it looks way more intense than it actually is. Like I see this on the shelf and I'm like, wow, this is like a big, heavy type game. But really it's a head-to-head like almost route builder, I want to say. Almost route builder, but you're trying to either mess up your opponent into having 4 or 3 black holes in their spaces, win by having 4 galaxies in your spaces, or by connecting the 2 different outposts. Yeah.
I will defend the deluxe version because I love neoprene mats.
The mat is nice.
But what I love even more is when the neoprene mats fits into the box. So having a neoprene mat in the box and having like nice deluxe components as well instead of cardboard, I'm all for this. But it is a really fun game. All you're doing in the game is placing one of your tokens, and you're just taking turns doing that. There's no restrictions on placing where on the map, but the only restriction is for the galaxies, connecting the black holes. And it's really fun because you are trying to get really into your opponent's head. There's so many times I've played this game. I feel like I'm terrible at this game. Tyler always crushes me because I play a piece and I just know I lost because I've just put myself in a corner.
Yeah.
But I like these types of games because you want to come back and improve and get better. And it's a pretty cool theme around it too.
Yeah, and like most 2-player games, if you're looking for like a head-to-head, like play-the-player type game, like this is definitely one of those. It's pretty straightforward once you get going too. So, yeah, don't let the size of the collector's box make it look like a cumbersome thing.
Ta-da! Ta-da!
Yeah.
Ryan Duo.
Okay, next up on our list is kind of a classic, but revamped, I would say.
Okay.
And that is a game called Stack and Stuff from Lookout Games. It's an Uwe Rosenberg game, and as you can probably see, or maybe you can't see, but it says a patchwork game for 2 players. So this is a patchwork-inspired game where you're going to be filling the back of your moving truck with all of the things in your old place. And essentially, it's got that similar vibe where you're going to be drafting tiles, placing them into your truck, and making sure you stack them, like, well.
I feel like it's a really fun theme, and it's really cool because the trucks have this little closing and opening so there's a little bit of a thematic component look as well. But generally, if you like when things connect and fit things very nicely, this may be a game for you because it is really about making sure you get everything in as close space as possible and score the most points doing so.
Yeah, I did think it was a lot quicker and more streamlined than Patchwork. So if you are looking for a more intro style game, I think Stack and Stuff is a good place to start. And then of course, like, you can combine that with then playing the Patchworks afterwards. So I think it's a good little addition to a Uwe night even.
Yeah, it's definitely not a reskin. It's like a Patchwork light.
It's a different game. It just is inspired.
Exactly. So that's Stack and Stuff. Now the next game we talk about is Jekyll versus Hyde. So you'll take a role of either Dr. Jekyll or Hyde, and you'll play by playing cards through trick-taking. Now what's really cool is one of the characters wants a really neutral trick-taking. So they want one player to win the same amount of tricks as the other player. Because the other player succeeds if there's a big difference because they'll move on the track and get closer. Exactly. So it's really cool because I feel like it feels really different as a trick-taking game because the goals in themselves are different. But then there's always some twist cards and potions as well that really throw the game off.
Yeah, I think if I were to compare this to anything, it would actually be like a Fox in the Forest turned on its head. That meant like we were playing against each other instead of with each other. So I think
like
because
duet
in Fox in the Forest, like, you're really like duet. You're trying to like work together to do these things. But in Jekyll and Hyde, obviously you're trying to work against each other. And yeah, it's very interesting, like that head to head. Like, it does depend on your hand, but you have to be very aware of like what's going on, and then all of a sudden you throw abilities into it. It is a very interesting game. The dynamic of like the back and forth is always fun, and then of course it is one of those games where you play Dr. Jekyll, and then next game you want to play Mr. Hyde. Like, it is very interesting in that sense.
And the suits are always different. So that's also really, and you kind of get to set them. So that's really cool too. But generally, I think it's a really well done game. And it's also quite thematic, which is also really fun. So that is Jekyll versus Hyde.
We've only got 2 more on our list to talk about. And the next one is another head-to-head. Like most 2-player games, this one is called General Orders World War II. And essentially in this game, you're going to be playing through a bunch of different actions back and forth, basically setting up your army and locking down specific like central areas while making sure you can protect your base. Essentially, at the end, what you're going to do is, as long as everything is still connected, you're going to score points for those key areas, and whoever has the most points wins. So it's like a area control type game, and the action sequencing is really interesting. The timing is very important in this game, and that's what I think I like about it the most.
As it is in war. I don't personally gravitate towards war games, but I fell in love with this one. I think the way that the moves are played out and the way the game is designed, it just feels so smooth. And having different areas being supplied, knowing different actions, and outthinking your player, it just feels right.
Yeah.
And there's layers of complexity because there's a different side of the board where all of a sudden you're controlling planes that have different areas that are in supply. And it's really interesting to layer that on and try to compete and try to win. But this is definitely probably the most complex out of the games that we're
I would
looking
say
at
so.
here.
This one is definitely on the complex side. And then, of course, like, we didn't even talk about like the cards that you end up being able to draw and how they can change the whole action that the opponent is doing if they're maybe attacking you for some reason. So it is very interesting, just the layers that are in this game. It's a lot of fun.
And it's a lot of box in a small...
It's a lot of game in a small box.
It's a lot of box.
It's a lot of box in a small game. No.
Other way.
Anyways, that is general order, and now we're on to our last game of our list.
Which is Overboss Duel.
Duel.
So if you are familiar or not familiar with Overboss, this game is a tile placement game where you're placing tiles of different terrain and tokens on them. And depending how the terrain and the tokens are placed, you'll score a various amount of points. But the twist in this game is that you and your opponent have a shared board. And not only can you play on your board to help benefit your board, but you can sabotage your opponent's board by maybe messing them up.
Scoring areas, I think, is a better way to put it. Because, yeah, there's like a certain number of boards that you'll score from, and then a certain number of board that your opponent will score from.
Scoring area is a good way to put it, for sure.
Yep.
And it's really fun because a lot of these types of games, you're always really focused on your own board and do your own thing. There's no player interaction. But all of a sudden, someone's building up something over there, and you're like, I'll just place something here. And it's a little bit funny. And I really enjoy this game because it's a really different dynamic.
Yes.
So if you enjoy tile placement games with a little bit of sabotage, this game is for you.
Oh yeah, this game is a lot of fun. You do have to be very cautious about like putting tiles on the other side too. So that's interesting because like later on, the whole thing is that you're going to fill the board, and later on, like they'll have to place onto your side, or maybe there's tiles that aren't necessarily good for you that you end up now having to lock into your side as well. There's some intricacies with being able to like manipulate the board, which I thought was a lot of fun too. It's a good two-player version of Overboss, so definitely if you enjoyed Overboss, I would say check out Overboss Duel. And of course, like all of these games that we've been talking about today, if you want those head-to-head combat games, or head-to-head games, I think Overboss Duel is also a great addition to the table.
And it's cross-compatible.
It is.
So you can take a bunch of tiles from Overboss, mix them up, switch up the terrains. So there's limitless ways that you can potentially score and mix up tiles.
Yes, this definitely sticks with the Overboss vibe, and it's always a good time.
And that's been
10, yes, indeed 10 new two-player games that we thought we'd
share with you. Now, which one did you gravitate most towards?
We had card games, we had cooperative games, we had like tic-tac-toe games. There's a lot of variety in this.
Games.
Yeah, and it's always fun to see the broad range and complexities of two-player games come together. But let us know what you thought about this list. And like Ilya said, let us know if any of them spoke to you more than the others.
Now, for a question of the day, it is exactly that. And is there any other two-player games we should be aware of?
Yes.
We always love learning two-player games because we love playing two-player games together.
Exactly.
And learning is fun.
Exactly. And of course, last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button if you're new here. We make weekly board game content like this, and we're always happy to have you along for the ride.
Join us.
Yeah. We'll see you in the next one, though. Bye.